Hi, Michaela. Thanks for joining me. So how do you find a competent, ethical financial advisor? An approach that I've recommended for years is to research planners, ask questions, and persist until you get clear answers. That's important. Under a relatively new SEC rule, getting those answers, though, is becoming harder to do. Now, if that doesn't make any sense to you, I get it. The shift comes from the SEC's updated marketing rule. It took full effect in late 2022 and now is being actively enforced as a high priority concern by the SEC. The words your advisor chooses in a one-on-one conversation may need to be documented, reviewed, and carefully parsed, often resulting in language that's more cautious and vague than you, as a client, would like. Now, ironically, the intent of this rule is to protect clients, and the principles behind it are actually really sensible. Communications must not be misleading. Claims must be substantiated. Information must be fair and balanced. Investor protection matters. So that all makes intuitive sense. The surprise is how broadly the SEC now defines advertising. Under the marketing rule, websites, social media posts, emails, presentations, and many other communications can be considered advertisements. Even a one-on-one communication may be treated as an advertisement if it includes hypothetical performance, a paid testimonial or endorsement, or material that the advisor uses over and over in meetings with different clients. In those cases, the same rules apply as if the message appeared on a public website. So imagine that you, as a client, ask your advisor a straightforward question. Can you show me how this strategy might have performed in the past? Previously, an advisor might have walked through a hypothetical, or what we call a back-tested example, explaining assumptions and risks in plain English. Today, hypothetical performance is one of the SEC's biggest enforcement hot buttons. Even an example shared with a client can trigger violations unless strict conditions are met. So those conditions really go far beyond a verbal disclaimer. So now firms must be able to show that they reasonably believe the hypothetical performance was appropriate for the client. They need to disclose every material assumption used in the calculation. They need to explain the inherent limitations of hypothetical results. They need to maintain written records showing exactly how the figures were generated and reviewed. And they need to spell out in compliance manuals who is allowed to receive such information and under what circumstances. Miss one step, and an illustration meant to clarify can become a compliance violation. Now, faced with these requirements, I think it's easy to see why many advisors would simply choose not to answer the question at all. The risk of leaving the client frustrated is seen as less harmful than the risk of potential disciplinary action by the SEC. The SEC's enforcement history on this explains why that caution runs so deep. In 2023 and 2024, the SEC conducted multiple sweep exams focused specifically on this marketing rule. These reviews were proactive and not triggered by client complaints. That's important. In August 2023, Titan Global Capital Management was fined $850,000, largely for misleading hypothetical performance claims. In September 2024, the SEC charged 9 advisory firms in another sweep with fines totaling more than $1.2 million for marketing rule violations. Now, what's especially important is how these cases were framed. The SEC has moved toward an outcomes-based standard for substantiation. That means if a firm cannot prove a claim was true at the time it was made, it can be deemed a violation regardless of intent. This is why my long-standing advice to ask questions and pursue straight answers now comes with another layer. Yes, keep asking the questions. Keep having those direct conversations. Ethical, competent advisors will still do their best to give you good advice that is in your best interest. But now it may come wrapped in caution, qualifiers, and very, very carefully chosen words. Not because your advisor is hiding something, but because in today's regulatory environment, even a private conversation can look a lot like an ad and welcome the scrutiny of the SEC. Thanks for listening.